We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them out. I'm really biting, they just barking out. I'm really riding, they just parking out. His street, what to talk about. See the big H when I'm walking out. Yeah.
Yep, it's about that time. We've hit week 13 here in college football, and let's dive into it a little bit. Welcome to the Athletes Forum podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Subscribe, share with a friend, drop a comment because it's an interactive show, and we discuss along the way. There's a lot of things we want to talk about here, and mostly is diving into week 13 games, but really wanted to reflect on the playoffs that were released this past Tuesday. And again, nothing to get too crazy about. They still got 2 more rankings before this is all done. But it's interesting to see how some of these teams are starting to line up. All right. So, we'll dive into that a little bit here, but a couple of things I wanted to kind of, reflect on and talk about is a couple teams and conferences that are making some headway here. And one of those is the Big 12. The Big 12 is a mess. The Big 12 is a mess. We got a lot of chaos in the Big 12. Obviously, with BYU losing last week. I had mentioned the week prior that BYU, even with one loss, possibly still could get in. They're at that point where they have to win out now. All right. I was assuming maybe that one loss come in the championship game. I wasn't thinking it was going to come against Kansas in the way it did. But all of a sudden, BYU was in a winner-go-home situation, especially seeing how far they dropped, when you talk about the playoffs and where they were aligned, right? If you bring up the playoff here, currently right now, BYU would be in the 12 spot because, again, highest ranked 5 seed will go to a highest rated conference championship. Will go to Boise State because they're ahead of BYU in the rankings. BYU drops all the way down to 12 from originally being number 3. All right. And that's going to cause a lot of drama and headway, when these playoffs are officially, announced, so to say. But there's a lot of chaos in the Big 12, and you got Colorado beating Utah, putting up 49 points, really 42 because they had that special teams return for a touchdown. That's the first time since, from what I've heard, the Oregon Marcus Mariota days that a Utah defense gave up that many points. So even in Colorado's worst game, because they did get off to a slow start, the defense is phenomenal. Offense got off to a real slow start before they started to get going. That's the first time a Utah defense gave up that many points. One thing you could do when you look at Colorado is obviously there's a lot of people want to see them fail, so to say, but you got to give them credit for the adjustments that they make in each game and being able to, overcome adversity and, still play after play after play. So you got to give Colorado credit in that sense. Another team you got to look out for is Arizona State, a team that was projected last preseason in the Big 12. No one thought anything of this team. Head coach Kenny Dillingham, who originally came from Oregon as the offensive coordinator when Bo Nix was there, he's activated the Valley. Arizona, the Valley is activated. Now they got a huge game this weekend coming up against BYU. And if they win out, we could be seeing Arizona State in the Big 12 championship. All right. The Big 12 is a mess. How about Kansas? Kansas beating Iowa State. Kansas beating BYU. Kansas playing well, right, late in the season. Obviously didn't get off to a good start, but, this is a team that is playing well, starting to click, and they got a big one this weekend versus Colorado in Arrowhead, right? Iowa State, we thought they were out, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're not. They still have a chance to get in. We could be looking at a 4-way team tie by this Sunday, right? By the end of this Sunday, which makes it exciting to watch. And this is why you gotta love college football. So, locker room, this is my question to you. Drop a comment, let me know what you think. Who's coming out the Big 12? Who's gonna make it out the Big 12? BYU's going this way. Colorado, Arizona State's going this way. Slowly, Iowa State is creeping up, right? Who's coming out the Big 12? You guys let me know what you think. Drop a comment, all right? You know how this works. We interact here and we talk some ball. Another team we want to keep an eye on as, we're talking about these college football playoffs. What about Notre Dame? What about Notre Dame? When the playoffs were first released, I was one to think that Notre Dame was kind of in trouble just because that loss that they had against Northern Illinois is probably still the worst loss. And with all these teams at the top playing top tier teams, they're going to have a stronger schedule, conference play. What is there a chance for Notre Dame to get bumped out? Needless to say, this is why this man came to Notre Dame, because Riley Leonard is playing some great ball right now. Riley Leonard is playing some great ball. And we look at Notre Dame, even the past couple years, Coach Freeman, known as a defensive guy, their defense has been phenomenal, right? Even when, before he became head coach and Brian Kelly was, their defense was good. First year at Ohio State, defense was good. Last year got better. This year it's even better. Offensively, they're dealing with a couple injuries, but offensively now they're getting better and things are starting to click. In their last 4 games, this offense has averaged, 42 points per game, while the defense only giving up 11, right? So you ask, what about Notre Dame? Why does this guy come here? Rushing. This team is averaging 217 yards rushing over the last 4 games. Riley Leonard has been a notch above. I know they hate this term, but a notch above the game manager. He's been doing exactly what he came there to do, and he's been getting better. They've been putting up more points. They've been kind of balling lately. So big game against Army this week. I know a lot of teams are rooting for Army, especially when you look at Tennessee, where they are in the rankings, first team out, how they're able to find their way into the playoffs. They're going to need Army to win. So we'll see how this goes. But Notre Dame, locker room, talk to me. Real contenders in the playoffs? Right now they got a home game. Right now they got a home game if we bring this up again against Alabama. How would they fare against Alabama? Because Alabama's playing pretty good ball right now, right? Is Notre Dame a team maybe get a playoff win? Are they a national title contender? Locker room, drop a comment. Let me know what you think. All right. This is gonna be a big game. They got Army, USC the following week. Then they have the bye. Is Notre Dame some real ballers? Some real ballers when we're talking about college football playoffs, right? Man, 2 things I want to talk about with this next topic here, because it's kind of 2 ways we all need to look at this. Near and dear to my heart. And I'm talking about the Florida Gators. Huge win versus LSU. And honestly, Billy, the future is now. The future is now, right? These boys, you can't be proud of how this team has been able to react, turn around, play for Coach Billy Napier. All right. Again, I apologize. I was one of the few that thought maybe he was gone, but he's proven he could coach. And that's the thing. Like, usually you get players that quit on you, players that don't believe in you, players that, don't necessarily line up with you or believe in you. And this team hasn't quit. They're playing a lot of freshmen, and it's happening. Billy's vision for this team is coming to fruition, right before our eyes. So sorry to Billy for doubting you. But again, the future is now for Florida. This team never quit, and I think the starting point for this game was probably the Kentucky game. I think that was DJ's first start, and we'll dive into DJ here in a second. Probably that Kentucky, no, not Kentucky, the Tennessee game. That Tennessee game, and they went to overtime. Remember, before, in 4th quarter, they could have went for 2. They decided to kick the field goal, go into overtime, and lost to Tennessee. But that Tennessee loss probably was the start of this turnaround. All right, you're competitive against Tennessee. You beat Kentucky. Again, Kentucky beat Ole Miss, who we have this week. Kentucky almost beat Georgia, right? So you beat Tennessee. You lose Kentucky. You almost beat Georgia. Excuse me. You lose Tennessee. You beat Kentucky. You almost beat Georgia with a 3rd-string quarterback after the injuries. Lost to Texas. Again, banged up. It is what it is. LSU, that was a gritty win. And now we got Ole Miss this weekend. I believe I want to quote Joel Klatt, who gives this phrase where when building the program, you have to lose big before you can lose small. You have to lose small before you can win small, and you have to win small before you can win big. We're seeing that before our eyes. Florida is changing. Again, not getting blown out, losing small games, right? Talk about the Tennessee game, winning tight games, LSU, Kentucky. All right, we're getting to that point where we start winning a couple more small games, and then this thing could take off, win big. So we'll see. It just gets me more excited heading into next year. And now we're 1 game away from being bowl eligible. We still have Ole Miss. We have FSU. God, I hate Florida State. We got FSU coming up Ole Miss this weekend again. And it's about the future. You look at that defense. Secondary needs a little work. We already get it, but there's about 5 seniors on that defense that either start or rotate. Everyone else is underclassmen. Everyone else is underclassmen. Get it? It's a transfer era. People could leave at any moment. Hopefully that's not the case. From what we've seen here, hopefully these guys are returning back to play for Coach Billy Napier, or at least most of them, because they easily could have quit, and that would have been even a more sign that these guys were out. All right. So I think there's more of a chance for us to come back. Wide receiver, we're losing a couple key guys, playmakers at receiver. We beef up that offensive line. We got young running backs. We got a DJ. Locker room, you let me know what you think. Is this season a win for Florida, regardless of what happens? Or are we still waiting to see what happens? Do they get bowl eligible? What the situation is? But thus far right now, season, is the season a win for the Gators and what they had to do to overcome everything? All right. And then another thing I want to talk about when it comes to Florida is we've waited 17 years for this. We've waited 17 years for a quarterback. We've waited 17 years for someone like DJ Lagway. All right. Last real quarterback was probably 06, 07 when we had Tebow. But I'm not even talking about Tebow as starter, because in 07, we had 2 Heisman eventual winners in the quarterback room. Tim Tebow and Cam Newton. Unfortunately, we know the thing that happened with Cam Newton. He never went on to play for Florida. But ever since Cam, we've been in a drought. Cam would have been our next man up. Maybe if he came a year later. All right? Because, he got his shine once Tebow would have left. But we've been in a drought since losing Cam Newton. Not saying DJ's going to be a Heisman candidate, but we have a solid QB in our offense now, and that's something to get excited about. When you look at some of the quarterbacks that we've gone through over the past 17 years, you talk about John Brantley, Gatorade Player of the Year, never really panned out at Florida. Jacoby Brissett ended up transferring to North Carolina State. Jeff Driscoll, another top recruit, Gatorade Player of the Year. It was decent. You go to Morningway, you go to Will Greer, who ended up transferring to West Virginia. Felipe Franks there for a little bit, had some good wins, beat Tennessee. He ends up going to Arkansas. Graham Mertz, right, got hurt, and then there's some Trey Burton along the way. Now we have DJ Lagway, freshman quarterback. And since he's played and started, I think his record's 3-1 or 3-0 in the games that he's started and finished. We got a baller. We got a baller, Gator Nation. We got a baller. That guy right there. What up, Deuce? We got a baller. So why should we be excited? Same schedule we're heading into next year. Obviously, flip home and away games, right? We're seeing what DJ could do now, and the team's only going to get better, assuming we bring in the right guys. Obviously, we're recruiting. We're seeing some of the guys that are coming in already, and some of the recruits we're able to steal from a Florida State, a Georgia, etc. DJ's a stud. Raw. He just needs repetitions. That's all I'm seeing. I'm just seeing a guy that needs more reps. He gets better each game, has a live arm, nothing but excited, especially, with what the future holds and all the young talent that we're seeing. So, locker room, talk to me. Do we have true excitement for DJ in the future of Florida, or are we still in the wait and see mode? I guess it's only time will tell. Only time will tell. All right. So let's talk about these playoffs a little bit. Obviously, we mentioned this some. We'll get into those games in a second. Here. There we go. All right. Playoffs. Notre Dame, Alabama, Ohio State, BYU, Penn State, Georgia, and Ole Miss, Indiana. If I'm being honest, yes, Oregon best team in the country. I don't think it's close. Texas hasn't played anybody. Miami, 1 loss, and they could be potentially out of the playoffs. Boise State, great story so far. I think right now, and it kills me to say this, I think Georgia could be the best team in this 12-team playoff. I don't think Penn State beats Georgia. I think Indiana can handle Ole Miss. Alabama's tricky because they're playing good ball right now. Ohio State probably has the easier path at that 5 seed. We'll see. But I know when we get down to the top 8, Those are going to be some games. Those are going to be some games, man. You guys let me know what you think. What do we think about the playoffs? Who's in a good spot? Who's in a good seed? Drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think there. All right. Let's talk a little bit about this week 13 slate. Week 13 slate of games we got coming up. All right. Obviously the big one, you got Indiana, Ohio State, Florida, Ole Miss, Colorado, Kansas is a huge game. Now BYU, Arizona State's a huge game. There's some good games we're gonna dive into here. All right. First one I want to talk about with y'all. All right, let's go back to my Gators. All right. Florida, what are we right now? I think we're a 10-point dog right now. My Gators are 10-point dog right now. The way I see this is that Florida's O-line, the way Florida's going to win this game is they're going to have to win up front. We're going to be against one of the top D lines. They lead the country in sacks, pressure. We saw what they did to Georgia. Also, we did some damage to Georgia too, so we're going to talk about conference opponents. We also beat Kentucky. We also beat LSU, who also beat Ole Miss. So when you think about this game, we got DJ back. This is going to be a good quarterback game. I'm excited. And we're in the swamp. I think Florida has a chance here. Lane Kiffin's already talking about not wanting to get to that SEC championship to potentially be bumped out. I think Ole Miss is playing more defense versus being more aggressive when it comes to how they want to finish the season. I'm going to rock with Florida. I'm going to take the 10.5. I'm also going to pick the over 55.5. I think big points in this game. All right. I think big points in this game. All right. Shout out to DJ Lagway, Gators. Let's go. Next game. Let's dive into it. Week 13. Colorado. This is a tricky game. For Colorado. Listen, I thought Texas Tech was a tricky game, but this is even more of a tricky game because what Kansas has been doing as of late. Again, we talk about beating BYU. We talk about beating Iowa State. And now they're going to Arrowhead. All right. They are dogs, 2.5 dogs to the Colorado Buffs, who's been balling. How does Colorado offense rebound from last week is the big question. I feel like their defense is going to play well. Colorado still hasn't really showed a consistent week in, week out to establish a run game. If anything, they're going to force teams. Kansas is going to force Colorado to throw the ball, which maybe favors them, but you got to have some type of run game. You got Gustav, you got Dallin Hayden, you got Charlie Offendale. You got guys back there. Now, Colorado, what do you do here? All right. If Colorado could get over this would be great for the program as they continue the hype and where they are. And I'm excited for Colorado. I want them. Listen, I am not a Colorado hater. I've talked to the Colorado fans through the comments below. Appreciate all your support. I know they have they were in the national championship. I know they have a Heisman winner. All right, for people who have gotten on me of overreacting and talking about some of the biggest game in Colorado history, trust me, I know all that. But if you listen to the video when I was talking about Texas Tech, I said this is the biggest game in Prime's era. Remember, over the past 2 years. This is going to be a good game as well. I'm excited. I'm rooting for Colorado. Let's see. Who am I going to – let me look at my notes here. I'm going to do Colorado. I'm going to do over 59.5, and I'm going to take Colorado minus a 2. Again, second half, this is one of the most dangerous teams in college football. I think they find a way. If this has to be a shootout, I think Colorado wins. I think Kansas has shown that they can play multiple different types of games, but I'm favoring the Buffs. in this game. All right. Let's talk about another Big 12 game. BYU and Arizona State. Yes. Coach Dillingham activated the Valley. In the words of Taylor Lewan, the Valley is activated in Arizona. All right. So how do I feel about this game? To be honest, what's the line here? Arizona State -3? I think it'll be a tough game. Don't get me wrong, but I think Arizona State got this. I think BYU has been trending in the wrong direction. They've been playing their worst ball at the worst part, at the most needed part of the season, right? So I'm going to go Arizona State -3 on this one over BYU. Does BYU bounce back? I don't know. I just think Arizona State's playing real good ball. This is a team that beat Kansas State, Arizona State. They beat up a lot of other good opponents, in that Big 12. Obviously, we talk about Iowa State. This team, again, a team that supposed to finish last in the Big 12 is potentially vying for a Big 12 championship. BYU, they got to turn it around. They got to turn around. Remember, I thought they could still get in with one loss, and maybe that's still the case, but now you're in a position where you can't lose any more games, BYU. You cannot lose any more games. All right? I'm going to take Arizona State -3 in this game to beat BYU. All right? Last game we want to talk about. All right? And it's the game of the week. All right? Big noon kickoff. Big 10 game of the week. Everyone wants to see is Indiana the real deal. All right? Is Indiana the real deal? And then we're going to find out against Ohio State. Ohio State did just have the injury to their starting center, though. Remember, they're already battling offensive line issues heading into this week. Now you have an injury to your starting center. How does that affect Will Howard in the run game? We'll see. I think Indiana State is better than what people are giving them credit for. Again, a lot of people saying that, they don't play anybody. Again, this is a team that barely beat Michigan last week. Ohio State has a good schedule, but I think Ohio State could get got in this game. Granted, they have a good defense. I don't know how good their corners are. Indiana provides a lot of speed. Curtis Rourke is a veteran quarterback. Kirk Cinetti said Ohio State sucks, right? So we'll see. We'll see where this one ends up. But I like Indiana in this game. I'm going to take Indiana plus the 13.5. I think they are not a 2-score dog to Ohio State. Granted, this is in the shoe, right? But I just think back to Ohio State against Nebraska. I think back to Ohio State against, Penn State. And granted, Penn State was a good game. Nebraska was a gritty win. But I think a lot of people are undervaluing and underestimating Indiana. And then with the injuries to Ohio State, is this the week they get tripped up? Does Ohio State get in as a 2-loss team? There's some questions that we got to need answers, and we got to get them this week. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Again, shout out to the locker room. That's you guys. Appreciate your support. Week 13. We here, baby.